One meeting, one email, and suddenly my six-figure career disappeared. Being laid off from my corporate role was the biggest slap in the face I've ever gotten, and that was a brutal wake-up call. I'll be honest, I did not think that my career was over, but it was a crucial and crisis moment for me. That was a turning point, and I'm here to share my lessons with you. So my story started slightly before my layoff. I had a stable, successful career in a large corporate organization in London, enjoying my human resources and learning development role, which I also currently do now, but in a different company. And at that point, I had pretty much everything I needed. Great salary, recognition, wonderful team and manager. What else would you like to have? But I was bored. So I decided to test my own career development and job search advice. I was curious. So I rewrote my own LinkedIn profile and I really wanted to aim higher at more senior director roles. And to my surprise, that was a booming market and I got multiple offers, some of them almost doubling my previous salary. So I made a leap and I chose a director role in a startup company, which was completely different and really exciting. It felt really great, fast-paced, flexible, and full of growth. That's what I really was looking for at that moment. And then 9 months later, layoffs, redundancies, out of nowhere. I mean, not necessarily out of nowhere. It was that moment in the market when a lot of companies were making layoffs, but nothing was really telling that ours going to do the same. So quite often it is going to be a surprise. Not quite a nice one. First, I was asked to make a list of projects that I worked on at the time. I didn't even consider anything about it. Guess what? This is the first red flag. If you are being asked to make a list of the projects you work on, you might as well start working on writing your CV that same day. Then my manager became suddenly super busy and she cancelled a couple of one-to-ones. Then, on a random Sunday, a meeting invite came for an in-office face-to-face meeting. At that point, I knew something was off. That phrase, "your role is at risk," that was something that really shook the ground under my feet. I knew that at risk pretty much means redundancy or layoff. And while in the UK there is a whole process of how redundancy should be managed, and a lot of HR and people managers will try to find a creative way around this, no one will really tell you the truth. And you'll never know the reason of how specifically your role was selected to be under risk and for redundancy. At that moment, it was a complete shock. I kept thinking, is it me? Is that something that I could have done differently? Is it my performance? But clearly I have passed probation period. I was successful and they kept telling me that it's not me, it's my role. Which is true, but it doesn't make it better, does it? Because at that point, even though it was just the role, what I was losing was my job, my stability. And I was still thinking, am I just not good enough? At that time, I had family plans, I had mortgage, and suddenly no stable income. I wasn't prepared for that. On top of that, the job market was really collapsing in the UK, across the world. A lot of the companies were doing the same, laying off hundreds and thousands of people, many of them who have worked many years, who were the key performers. Somehow it just all didn't make sense. And at that point, I realized that no job is really safe. There is no such thing as permanent employment. Any permanent role is still temporary. You can be let go at any point of your career. This is the reality of the market that we live in. Stability is a total myth in today's corporate world. So here I was, wrapping up some of the projects, but also trying to find a job in a market where everyone is applying to all the roles. It was much more tough than the last time I was looking for. Personally, the constant anxiety in combination with looking for a job and understanding that, hey, in 3 months I won't be able to pay my mortgage. And on top of that, financial pressure, trying to find the role as soon as possible to be able to continue your work and your life. Then came almost the worst, my identity. So by the time I finalized my project, returned my laptop, and I went into the freedom of being unemployed, The next morning when I woke up and I didn't have a laptop to open and a role to call myself by, I really struggled to understand who am I if I'm not a learning development director, or if I'm not that person in that company. What am I? What do I do? Who am I in this world? And that was really tricky from the mindset perspective. It feels like redundancy messes up with your mind and with your confidence much more than with your seat. You can always explain as to why you were made redundant and how it was your role and not your performance. And clearly, it really happens quite a lot across the market. But what it really hits is your confidence in your ability to go ahead on the market and advocate for yourself. Because at that point, you're really, really vulnerable. And this is how I felt at the time as well. Honestly, I'm not going to tell you that redundancy is an amazing opportunity for your career. Well, it might be, but it doesn't really feel like that in the moment when you are being let go. When you're losing ground under your feet, when you're losing your stable income, when you have no arguments as to why you're no longer employed, and you have to tell the whole story as to what has happened in your next interview. One of the key points that I had to negotiate in my redundancy agreement was ability for me to spread that information, to be able to share as to why I have left my previous company, as in I was made redundant and my job was at risk. So as I was going through a full-time job search, trying to find the next role, which will be similar level and similar pay, which was quite ambitious at that market stage. At that time, I also needed something to take me out of this mental spiral. So I started thinking about all the different things that I always wanted to do, but never ever had the time for, or never actually made a priority. So because I'm a learning and development person, I love teaching, but I also love learning myself. So what I did at that time, I signed up for a certification for coaching. I got certified in a psychometric test, which I absolutely love. And that was something that helped me in that moment when I had no formal corporate job and I had this pretty much personal professional crisis. It really helped me stay afloat, and it really helped me to understand that there is so much more than just my corporate job. I can do so many different things and I can help so many different people in so many different ways. And I really needed that mental stimulation on top of also trying to find the next role to pay my bills in London. So what helped me cope in that situation? It won't be easy. It is a big hit. But yes, you do need to find your own perspective onto your career, on who you are without your career or outside it, and also find some different ways of distracting yourself, as well as investing time into searching for your next step, but also being really clear about what do you want your next steps to be. And yes, I know it is super difficult when you are almost desperate and when you are really pressured to find your next job, because usually I would recommend not giving notice and not leaving the job if you don't have the next one lined up. So I'd really like to say, I get you, I know it's difficult, but I will say that it's one of those times that you have to go through and you will be able to do that. Well, at the time, market was quite tricky. I realized that my next job after being made redundant might not be the perfect job. So I had some priorities and I had to make decision quite quickly in terms of what I am able to secure or whether I'm going to wait for the next role. But then my next role after that one was much closer to what I really needed. In those critical situations, sometimes you have to make some compromises. But sometimes the only thing you don't want to compromise is your mental health. You can always change the job another time. You can always change your career. So please be kind to yourself. So what helped me from practical perspective was hiring a solicitor. It's a normal practice in the UK that if you are being made redundant, you are allowed to hire a solicitor and the company will pay for that solicitor. Solicitor will usually help you to understand whether the redundancy is fair. They will also be able to help you through that process of negotiation or consultations, and they will also be able to assess the agreement that you will be given at the point of the layoff or redundancy, and clearly articulate whether it is something fair or whether you can ask for more. And they can also provide some creative solutions as to how you can get a bit more financial compensation in order to last longer between the jobs. For example, one of the important points to remember that any compensation that you get as a part of redundancy pay will not be taxed until the £30,000, which means if you get 2 or 3 months notice, or for example you get some extra payments, it will all be paid out to you without any tax contributions. And in many times, solicitors can help you to negotiate so that employer includes as much as possible in that specific payment. I do hope that none of you will ever be going through a redundancy, but if you're watching this video, it's quite likely that you are. In that case, I hope it is at least not an unfair redundancy. In a case when it is an unfair redundancy, this is when you absolutely and definitely need to have a solicitor to make sure that you get whatever you deserve from that redundancy agreement. It also really helps to speak to someone if any of your friends have been through this, who can also help you mentally in terms of processing this. And it really helps to stabilize and to find that breathing momentum to continue looking for your next role. So fast forward to now, I'm now in the role that I enjoy, in the company that I love, with the team and the manager that I actually like. And finally, I now appreciate it so much more, the stability of a large company. Yes, startups are really exciting to work for, but you never know what's going to happen. And while redundancies and layoffs happen all across the market, regardless of the size of the company, sometimes the bigger ones are just slightly more secure than the startups. But at least in startups and scale-ups, you can as well get paid more for the risk. So it's been almost 2 years since I have been made redundant from my high-paid role in London. Let me share the lessons that I have learned through that process. Lesson 1 that I have got out of this is nothing is permanent in the corporate world. Titles, and it is all rented. What you own is your skills and your experience. So invest in that. Invest in your own development and make sure you choose yourself first, because the company can always let you go without any reason. The second lesson is that yes, the redundancy is not about you, it's about the role, but it doesn't really help. It still feels awful, and you're not the only one in this, and you feel helpless at the moment. So I definitely recommend finding the things that will comfort you in the moment. You have to almost go through that pain, and you have to almost go through that process of anxiety, of stress, of losing ground under your feet. But the more you're prepared for that, the easier hopefully it will be for you. The third lesson is that you are not just your title. You are so much more, and it is so key to find your own identity and your confidence outside of the corporate world, because things change too quickly these days. And you have to count on yourself and to find that internal support in terms of who you are, what you are in this world, what is the impact that you're making, to make sure whatever change comes your way, you always have your own stability inside you. The fourth lesson is that you always have to stay market ready. Keep your CV updated. Always keep an eye on the market in terms of what are the roles, what are the jobs being advertised, what are the trends in your industry. Keep your LinkedIn page fresh, but also keep your network alive. Do connect with similar professionals across different companies in your industry. Make sure you're up to date and you always know what is going to be your next step and how can you prepare yourself for that. The fifth lesson is the company owes you nothing, but also you owe them absolutely nothing. I am a human resources manager and learning and development professional, and I love talking about career development and finding the best different jobs and opportunities for yourself. But let's be honest, you come to work to do your job and get paid. Everything else is just a nice to have. These days, there is no loyalty from either side. This is the current reality of the market. And we have to be able to build and develop our careers with this constant change in mind. Think about yourself first. Put yourself first, your skills, your experience, your identity, your mental health, this is what really makes a difference to you. Make sure you cover your own priorities and know how to play this game. So, not everything has to be a winning moment, especially in a career, but anything can be a learning moment. So, these are the lessons I have learned from my own redundancy. So, with all that in mind, even I am myself a human resources professional. I help other people navigate their careers and find their jobs and develop themselves. But even for me, this layoff was one of the hardest experiences in my life, not just professional, but also the personal one. It was a big hit. It was a reflection moment. And it really forced me to reconsider my priorities, to do my best to reinvent myself, to understand that I shouldn't be putting all eggs in one basket, but also to find that own identity that I have. I mean, it probably also overlapped with the crisis of the 30s or the millennial stage of life, or this world being continuously changing and going through different crises. But I now have completely different outlook onto the corporate jobs and careers. And while I'm still all in for the 9 to 5, I enjoy my job and I enjoy my career, I'm now much more realistic about how permanent it could be, what it means in my life, and what is the amount of effort, time, and mental attention that I pay for that in comparison to the other areas of my life. Funnily enough, I realize now how useful it could be to have a side hustle. A consulting business is something that is just my own, but also something that gives me that leverage, that security and safety of not being dependent on my main corporate role. And this is my own personal development and my insights as well. So if you are going through redundancy or layoff, you are not alone. Share your story in the comments. What are your insights? What are you planning to do next? But if you need any support in terms of navigating this change and figuring out your next career move, definitely drop me a line for a consultation. So if you're ready to bounce back and find your next move, I definitely encourage you to watch my video on the 12 steps to your next career move, where I talk about all the different things that you will need to figure out in order to secure your next exciting job. In that video, I'll walk you through the exact 12 steps that I use for myself and for my clients to get back on the job market fast and a role that really fits. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.